Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone is doing well. Today I have 4 Reddit stories for you guys. All credit goes to the original posters of these stories, and I will link them in the description box. My son's mother picks him up from school every day. My son been taking the school bus for over a year now. Me and his stepmother both work full-time, and I usually get home 5 minutes before he does. Lucille, his stepmom, arrives at about 6. Of course, there's an odd traffic jam every once in a while, which usually leaves my son having to use a spare key. We've been having a lot of those days recently. Yesterday, somebody spilt water on the power supply or something at work, and we all got to come home early. I work with computers, so with no power, there's no point being there really. So I did some grocery shopping and came home about 10 minutes before his school bell rang. I thought about picking him up, but I would have gotten there a lot later than the school bus, so I just got started on dinner prep. I was well into cutting potatoes when I heard vroom of a car and the familiar voice of my son. It was my surprise when I saw him get out of a black SUV. I suspiciously ran to my door to greet the driver and ask what the hell they were doing picking up my son without my permission. I opened the door and started yelling, but they drove off before I could see their face. My son turned to me. "Dad? Buddy, who was that?" I said frantically. "No one." My son broke my gaze and made an angry pout before running upstairs. I chased after him, but he locked the door. Eventually, I persuaded him to get out with the help of a cookie. "Whose car was that?" Charlie made suspicious glances around the room before whispering, "They wouldn't want me to tell you." "Kid, I'm your dad. I need to know these things. I'll be fine if it's one of your friend's parents, but you've got to tell me." "No," I sighed heavily. "You know that cookie you're eating? I can make that too." Charlie's eyes lit up. "It's Mom." I stared at him in shock and both fear and anger. "Who, Lucille?" "No, my real mom." Those words pierced through me like a frozen blade, sending shivers through my spine. Charlie had always known Lucille was not his real mom, but he was a smart kid and knew it was a touchy subject for me. A part of me believes that he's truly okay with it. Lucille went to every Mother's Day breakfast. Her parents were Nana and Pop. The whole ordeal. I promised myself if he ever asked, I'd talk about it with him, but I just didn't feel comfortable with telling an 8-year-old that his mother had been dead since he was 6 months old. "Charlie, whoever that is, they are not your mom," I said with a stern tone. "No, they are, really. They look just like me." It's true, Charlie had always resembled his mom. Charlie is a very dangerous situation. Whoever is picking you up is not who you think they are. "Stay right where you are," Charlie grunted. "She knew this would happen," he mumbled. It felt like with every word he said, I was more and more shaken up. I phoned the police, texted Lucille, and promised him I would pick him up tomorrow. So there I was, waiting discreetly in my car. We'd come up with a plan to catch this fraud in action. I waited nervously, anticipation eating me from the inside out. I jumped when his school bell rang. He soon came running out, scanning the perimeter of the playground for that same black SUV. I could see the look on his face when he found out. This was my cue. I jumped out of my car and scattered to get beside him, but the car drove away just in time. But through the silhouette of the car window, I could see her black curly hair and sunglasses in the rearview mirror, flashbacks of her bruised arms and legs, and the heart monitor flatlining came back to me. I was in so much shock. I didn't say anything on the way home. I just stared at the road, thinking that my son wasn't lying. This woman was his real mom. But how? That was impossible. This source stayed with me well until the night when I heard a vroom outside. Lucille had come home. This vroom sounded like one from an SUV. I made my way outside, thinking of all the questions I was about to ask this person, but standing in front of the car was my wife. in a white pantsuit, the same one she crashed the car in, looking youthful as ever. Come, Marcus, we have a lot to talk about. I got locked in my friend's pool party, and I wish I never went. I am hiding from my friend who decided to throw a massive pool party for everyone in the local area for her birthday party. She was turning 18, and was throwing a huge celebration for it. Our entire neighborhood wasn't exactly well off, and she was the most wealthy in it. So everyone accepted for the free buffet only, except me. I was friends with her since 5th grade and have spent many sleepovers, shopping trips, you get the idea, with her. One thing that really bothered me about her house was the smell, though. Every time we went to her kitchen room, the smell of rotting animal meat blocked our noses. And even worse, if it was brought up within any moment we were sitting in the kitchen, the person who mentioned it would be asked to go to the basement bathroom and use this type of numbing gel with a strong smell on their nose. I arrived at the party early, 10 minutes before it was set. My friend greeted me with a welcoming smile and gestured me in. "What made you come so early?" she asked. I honestly didn't know how to reply and shrugged. Instantly, as we walked down the hall, the rotting animal meat smell radiated from the kitchen door. Yes, it was that strong that even with the door shut, it could still be smelt, and somehow just as bad. As we walked past the basement door located on the side of the stairs, I could have sworn I heard a faint banging and vibration, but I brushed it off. More people had arrived at this point, and we were all sitting in the large spare room, which was only used for playing games, sleepovers, or to store that shopping that I mentioned. We were all in the middle of a game of truth and dare until an ear-splitting scream came from downstairs. "What was that?" one of the girls asked, turning her head to each of us. "I don't know," the friend asked. I could tell she was faking it, but we were all too scared to notice. The friend trying to distract us led us down to the pool. It was a pinkish color and was claimed to be like that because of a bath bomb. The friend's dad began roasting a variety of meats, all of which smelt like the infamous rotting animal I had mentioned many times. I have to admit, though, I don't know what the meat was, but it tasted good. Everyone at the party had consumed it before the music began playing. Nothing else at the party was interesting until I somehow managed to get locked in the shed after leaving my sunglasses in there. Silence filled the night as I grew hungry. I scavenged around the shed until I found a small hairpin. Perfect. It took me all of 5 minutes to pick the lock, and I took a sneak peek into the basement window. I wish I hadn't. When I tell you I gasped, I mean it. At least 3 severed heads with features missing were flung from massive meat hooks under a dim, flickering light bulb. I could then hear a conversation from the kitchen window. The friend and her father sat there, staring blankly at the window, looking straight at me while speaking. They knew. They had a plate of meat sat in front of them on the corner, and I had to learn the hard way that it was the same meat served at the party. I'm now hiding in a large bush. I don't want to be the next victim for the following party. I can see shadow silhouettes shambling through the woods close to me. If I don't survive, don't expect updates. The only updates will be them or me, truthfully. Pray for me. I don't think I'm going to survive by dawn. My friend went missing during a game of hide and seek. 40, 41, 42, 43. I shouted out faster each time. I couldn't wait another second. 44, 5, 6, ready or not, here I come. I opened my eyes and took in the surrounding forest. I thought, where could my friend be? I hoped they didn't go deeper into the forest. It would be getting dark very soon, and I didn't feel like going into the middle of the woods, especially considering I already disliked being this deep. Even if my house wasn't too far away. I started looking around for my friend Haley. I looked behind trees, and I even went back to my house and searched for her, but I couldn't find a trace. Sadly, I realized what I had to do before it got too dark. I headed into the woods. At that moment, all I felt was fear and, well, the cold. It was fall. All I had on was a light long sleeve shirt and a pair of beat up jeans. It was dark, so dark I couldn't see 5 feet in front of me. As heavy fog rolled in, I pulled out my phone flashlight hoping it would help me see better, but no, I ended up turning it off because it was at a low battery. At that moment, I felt a pang of anxiety and worry for Haley. What if she had gotten lost? What if she tripped on a branch? Did she run away? It had been about an hour. Why was she still hiding? It felt like forever since I last saw her, since I last heard her voice. She has to be here somewhere, right? I'd keep telling myself. At that moment, I heard a thud from somewhere on my left. It sounded like someone or something falling. Haley! My voice cracked as I screamed her name. What was happening? My head was reeling. I had gone dizzy with worry. My heart pounded so hard against my chest. I felt like my rib cage would explode. My breathing got harder, but I kept running, not knowing where. My gut wouldn't let me stop. Suddenly I tripped, not sure on what. I got up and rubbed my head. I turned my phone back on and shone it around what had tripped me. I flashed it around. When it illuminated a mound, as I got closer, I could just make out the shape. It was Haley. I couldn't believe my eyes. Haley was dead. There was a hole in her throat. Blood was all over her clothes and all over my shoes. Her eyes rolled back in her head. I could see her scared expression. I'm positive my face was paler than a ghost. I was about to scream when I realized that whoever or whatever did this may still be out here. I ran back home, choking back sobs, but also the barf that I felt in the back of my throat. When I barged through the door, I saw my mom and Haley's mom. They were having a nice conversation, but went quiet when they saw me. My new Converse, soaked in blood, my face covered in snot and tears. I didn't say anything. I just ran back out. They followed behind me, but I lost them after a bit. As soon as I slowed down and caught my breath, I let myself break down. I felt myself slowly lose consciousness as I felt so much fear and was utterly disgusted with whoever did this to poor Haley, my best friend since we were 5 and 4. I woke up in the middle of the night after having a horrible nightmare about Haley. It was her body and a creature, something that looked like a deer, but was not a deer. Not deer, I called it. The not deer had a neck that looked like it had been snapped on a noose. Its limbs were backwards, almost, and it seemed to stand on 2 legs. Its fangs were bloody. The top fangs went through the jaw. It just stood over Haley's lifeless body looking for its next victim. I snapped back to reality. I thought to myself, why the hell did I sleep in the forest? I looked around, and to my horror I realized I wasn't where I was when I fell asleep. I tried to get up but couldn't move. I tried to move my hands to push myself up, but I couldn't. Sleep paralysis, I thought. I heard about it before, but had no clue why it would be happening to me. At that moment I saw her, Haley. She was hiding behind a tree in front of me. She couldn't see me. Then I saw the creature, the not deer behind her. It was slowly creeping up on poor unaware Haley. The not deer breathed heavily onto Haley's shoulder. She turned around to see it right behind her. It leaped onto her, fangs sinking into her throat, talons clawing at her throat. Haley tried to scream, but it came out as a wet gurgling sound. The light faded from Haley's eyes, but the look of shock still remained on her face. The not deer vanished. I still couldn't move. Time felt like it sped up. About 30 minutes. Felt like it passed in seconds. Then I was over Haley's body, but it couldn't be me, as I was here. I realized this must have been a replay of the events that happened after and during Haley's death. I wanted to scream and shout and cry, but I couldn't. I woke up in a panic. Finally, I could move. It must have been sleep paralysis. I felt the tears leave my eyes, and I let out a sob. I was so tired of crying. I almost felt numb. I took a deep breath, got up, and took in my surroundings. I was in the same place I was in my dream, but it was different. Everything had a gray tint and everything felt so dead. Maybe life was always like this and maybe I never noticed. I thought. I tried to make myself believe that, but deep down I knew that what was not true. Something was very horribly wrong. I was about to start walking home, but then I remembered that I lived west of the forest. Where was west again? I looked up at the sun. It just came up. So I would have the opposite direction of the sun. I started walking, and there was an unpleasant, eerie silence. No birds chirped, no rustle of leaves, and no wind. It felt like a walk that lasted forever. After ages of silent walking, I came to my house. Luckily, I still had my key in my pocket. My parents must have been sleeping. At that moment, the gravity of the situation hit me. My BFF was dead, and my mom and dad had no idea where I was all night. But there was nothing I could do, so I went to my bed and slept. I woke up sweating as I had a nightmare again. I went to my parents' room expecting them to be on their phone or something, but when I opened the door, they were not there. I looked out the window to see if they were out, but the car was still there. I searched the house for them, but I couldn't find a trace of them. But they couldn't have left because the front door was still locked with a little chain. I went back upstairs to their bedroom to search for them. There in my parents' bedroom on the wall, written with blood, there were the words, "Start hiding." At that moment, I felt a breath on my shoulder. I still believe in Santa and Satan. It was far past my bedtime on Christmas Eve, and I was lying in bed unable to sleep. I kept waiting for the sound of Santa climbing down the chimney with a sack full of presents. I was getting close to the age when children usually stop believing in Santa, so I had some doubts as to whether he was actually coming. But to my surprise, around 12, I began to hear what sounded like someone walking around the living room in boots. My heart began racing. I jumped out of bed and put my ear to the door. I listened to the footsteps as I went toward the kitchen, where the cookies and milk were. Before heading back where the chimney was, all went silent. I tried going back to bed, knowing it was hopeless. I wasn't sleeping until I at least had a peek outside of my room. I grabbed my flashlight and made my way down the hall. The first thing I noticed was the cookies left on the table had been eaten. Then I turned my attention toward the tree, which now had a beautifully wrapped presents all around it. I was amazed. He was real indeed. The chimney, though, looked completely undisturbed. While examining to see if there was any sign of Santa's entrance, I heard a voice from behind me. "Hello, child. What's your name?" The voice was low and throaty. I turned around and froze. Standing by the tree was a tall, thin, gray-skinned thing, with long, bony arms and long, sharp claws. It smiled at me with dark, soulless eyes. Who are you?" I said trembly. "Can't you tell? I'm Santa Claus, kid. See?" It pointed to the Santa hat upon its rather deformed head. "Why do you look like that?" "What? Do you think I'm ugly?" It asked in response. "Don't worry, I'm not bothered. A lot of people feel that way about me. That's why they made me look like a big fat guy." I didn't believe a single word it was telling me. "Why don't you know my name?" "Santa knows everyone's name." This question seemed to anger it. "That's trash made up for movies, kid. How could I know everyone in the world?" "Then how did you know I was good this year?" "I don't know." Its eyes turned red and its mouth opened to reveal rows of shark-like teeth. "Why do you ask so many damn questions?" I bolted to my room and slammed the door shut. I managed to push my dresser in front of the door before that thing started pounding on it. "Come on, kid, open up. I'm nice, I swear," it shouted tauntingly. It began to tear apart the door. Once that was out of the way, it picked up the dresser and threw it across the room. Not knowing what else to do, I ran into the closet, closed the door, and hid behind the toys inside. "Oh, now, wherever might you have gone, kid," it said. The monster opened the closet, revealing its smiling face once again. It moved closer. "Merry Christmas, kid." I saw a white glove grab its shoulder and pulled it away out of sight. I heard it screaming in pain. Its screaming turned screeching. It was begging for its life silence. I heard a now familiar sound of boots approaching. A man in a red cloak covering all of his face except for his beard appeared and gave me his hand. "You are safe now, Steve," he said. Looking around, the monster was nowhere to be found. "Is it coming back?" I asked. "No, never again." I examined the wreck that was now my room, wondering how I was going to explain this to my parents. "Worry not, Steve. Simply go back to bed and all will be well in the morning." And so I did. Somehow. I didn't have any trouble falling asleep this time. The next morning, my room was back to normal. Now here I am, all grown up. I still write to Santa every year, though I don't ask for much anymore. I simply remind him how grateful I am. Thank you for listening. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing and liking my channel, and I will see you on the next one.